everyone to yet another SDN Community Voices, a weekly touch point between you, the members and the followers of the Service Design Network, and all the amazing voices that we have in this community. My name is Felipe, and as always, I will be your ambassador and host. And today I'm very excited to moderate a little bit of a conversation between the Service Design Network and the ISSIP with Jim and Birgit here as guests. I will let them introduce them in just a quick second. And before we dive in, just a quick reminder to drop any questions you might have in the chat. We're going to address them during our final Q&A segment. But now let's just bring Birgit and Jim to the stage and ask them to introduce themselves. Hey, welcome.
Hi, Felipe.
Nice to be here.
So a quick introduction for the people that are watching us right now.
Hey, Jim, you want to start?
I'm Jim Spohrer. I'm on the board of directors of ISSIP, which stands for, and we pronounce it ISSIP, like innovation zips around the world. And it stands for the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals. So it's great to be here today. Yeah.
Oh, well,
and I'm happy to introduce myself more if you like, but that's the short one.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we can go with that for now.
Yeah, I'm Birgit Mager. I'm president of the Global Service Design Network, and I'm in service design for 30 years already.
Nice.
That was also short.
So, yeah, that's very short. I think that's good. But yeah, both communities or networks or nonprofits have service on its name, right? But how do you interpret kind of the idea of service? Just so we start off with that.
Sure, I'll go first. So we define service in the service dominant logic way of Vargo and Lush, which is a very simple definition, which is service is the application of resources for the benefit of another. And those resources could be anything, including knowledge. So that's how we define service, but it's basically helping other people. And we do put a big emphasis on value co-creation. And that is the idea that when you have these service interactions, it should be win-win.
Oh, great. I can 100% sign that definition. And I'm also a big fan of the service dominant logic of markets. And I use that very often to explain to designers, to young designers, how do design and service come together. I say basically in the end, everything is a service. So if you only look at a car, you might think it's a product. But if you zoom out a little bit, you see that the car is a product service system. A car would not work if there was not the retailer, if there was not the repair, if there was not the fuel stations, if there was not. So whenever you look at a product, you should zoom out and see what is the system around it. And then you start designing not only the material stuff, but also the immaterial stuff that is necessary in order to create value, to co-create value.
Yeah, I remember I saw, I think was in the UK, that they realized that right now almost 80% of all businesses are service-based, right? So we're definitely moving to the society where it's not just a product. We have big companies, as an example, Apple, that maybe started with a computer, but right now it's a full ecosystem, and they earn so much more money on the service than just the product, right? So there's so many examples like that.
Yeah, and still the systematic design and innovation of services, from my perspective, has not yet become the new normal. I mean, there is many companies nowadays that have service design in-house departments that are working with service design agencies. I'm not sure how service innovation is anchored within organizations. But however, I would say there is still a lot of room for improvement, considering the importance of services. And the lack of attention that they are still getting.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I started my service journey, almost 25 years ago when I was at IBM. And I was CTO of the venture capital group at IBM during the internet bubble, but the bubble burst, and so I had a colleague, Paul Maglio, who was in IBM research, and he said, Jim, why don't you come back to research? We have this problem that, over 60% of our revenue at IBM is coming from our service business, and only a tiny sliver of the 2,000 IBM researchers are working on service research. Most of them don't even know what service research is or service innovation could be. So we need to work together to define a new field. And so IBM put its weight behind service science, management, and engineering because it's very, multidisciplinary, almost transdisciplinary. And so that's what we did. So I started the service journey, and we built that up to a very large part of IBM research at the time to develop this idea that we needed, just like we needed computer science. IBM needed computer science in the early days of IBM, given the dominance of service in the economy, the labor force, knowledge intensive services. We definitely needed to ramp up our work. And I think it kind of boils down to interaction and change in a way, because there's multi-scale actors in the world. We as individuals, we're actors, but businesses are actors as well, and nations are actors. And the give and get of service happens at all of these different levels. And I think that's one of the interesting things when I look at service design. I see, there's service design at almost like the user interface, user experience level, but you can zoom out a little bit and you get to the service design at the organizational level, and then you can even go up higher to the ecosystem level. And maybe if I could say just one more thing, I know I'm going on a bit. When we look at service innovation, most service innovations these days have an increase in capability. So that's usually technology like artificial intelligence. So there's some amplification of capabilities, but a good service innovation, you have to have a business model to scale the benefits, and that has to be designed. And then always technology isn't just good. Bad actors can use it for bad purposes, or there's accidental uses. Think of a car, car accidents. So you have to have institutional arrangements, new laws, new policies to mitigate the harm. So we see service innovation in terms of new technological capabilities, amplifying business models, and to scale the benefits as quickly as possible. But we also have to have institutional arrangements to mitigate the harms.
Well, that's really interesting. And I would say IBM has been leading the investments in service research in the broadest sense. And IBM has also been leading investments in design thinking within the organization. Carol Farrenburg was one of the first who really pushed design thinking into this huge organization. I would be really curious, how do you approach research on service innovation, and what were some of your breakthrough discoveries?
Wow, that's, we came up with 6 different areas that we would look at. One, of course, was just new service offerings, so innovative new service offerings. And, so a lot of the Watson stuff and the AI stuff came out of that. But we also would look at our portfolio of service offerings and say, how do we manage that portfolio so we're always adding new things and taking away things, but even at the ecosystem level, we looked at service innovation in terms of the acquisitions we were making and things like that. And we had a kind of a simple model that served IBM quite well, which was we would we were acquiring about $100 million revenue business per month, and then we would scale them up, and that was an organizational kind of service innovation because you had to merge them. But we would also rotate people out of the older parts of our business into these newer parts of the business to grow. So our focus was very much on service system innovation. We spent a lot of time defining what is a service system, how do service systems interact with other service systems, and how do they change over time. And around 2012, IBM, Cisco, HP, and a bunch of tech companies got together and said, hey, this service innovation, service science stuff is important. We better start a professional association. So we started the nonprofit professional association, ISSIP, in 2012 with the help of a lot of companies, including IBM, Cisco, HP, and others. And now if you look at our website, you'll see we have, a strategy council with, like Accenture fellows, and we have people from NVIDIA and other companies, but a lot of universities too. I would say the thing that, ISSIP is relatively small. There's only about 2,000 participants globally, but we're very global, probably 700 organizations with those 2,000 people. So very, very diverse. And we really try to approach service research in what we call a big tent way. So we try to be very inclusive. We have social scientists, we have engineers, we have managers, we have an ambassador program with SDN ambassadors as well. Mauricio Manhez and Monsi Marino and Cecilia Lee, maybe some that you know. But yeah, we try to be a big tent and just provide a platform for people to share the work they're doing. So Birgit, it's really very open-ended in that sense. We don't try to come up with a narrow definition of service research and service innovation. We really try to say we're here to support everyone from students all the way up to retired people like me.
Yeah, it's interesting when we started the service design field in the middle of the 90s, I felt that we need to create a profession by the name service designer. Because if I educate young students and teach them how to design immaterial products, how to design service systems, then there needs to be a job market for them afterwards. And I would say that has developed really nicely throughout the last 30 years. We have study programs all over the world for service design in the BA master and in the PhD level. As I said, we have in-house service design teams. We have agencies for service design. And I regard service design as a profession that has found a lot of acceptance within industries and within the public sector. Now, is the service innovation professional also a profession? Is it something that you study and then you are hired as a service innovation professional? Or is it something that is more a mindset that a marketing person or a designer or anybody could say, hey, I'm doing service innovation, so I'm just going to join that community?
Yeah, it's more of a big tent. So it's like you could be studying strategy in a business school, or you could be studying systems engineering in an engineering school, or you could be studying anthropology in a social science school. And you can all increase your understanding of service systems and service system innovation. So again, we don't, it's multiple disciplines and it's multiple professions. Like you say, it's a mindset, a way of thinking that kind of unifies them all. And I would say the quote that I like is, real world problems do not respect discipline boundaries. So, if there is a service design professional, they're probably working on a team, right? And they have to have people on the team who are the business experts, maybe the marketing people. They have to have the engineers. They probably have the legal and accounting because there's budgets that go along with this. And if all of them, I remember one time Nick D'Onofrio, who is our senior vice president of innovation at IBM, we had a big meeting in Armonk, and he was, I don't know, we had people from all over the world, universities, other companies, and he said, somebody asked the question, so who in IBM is a service innovation professional? And he says, everybody. I want everybody, including the assistants, to understand service innovation. And he was a big believer in what we call the T-shaped model, where you have your area of depth. It could be any discipline, any industry sector, any geography, because IBM was global. But you have an understanding across the top where you can communicate with all of those different disciplines, all of those different industries, all of those different cultures. And that was really what we call the transdisciplinary journey that all disciplines are on, is to, a better part of a team solving the real world problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, Jim. You and I, we've had a couple of encounters throughout the last 2.5 decades, I would say, and we often met in the context of conferences. I remember Mary Jo Bittner would be around and Ray Fisk would be around, so the service marketing and the service innovation and the service design community. And ever since, I have thought that we have the same objectives. We want to create better services for a better world, but still we have never really found the time to discuss what are the differences and what are the overlaps of our different approaches. And I know it's a difficult question. I personally would say service design is service innovation. When we look at opportunity space or a problem space, we are looking for innovation. And how do you see it? Where do you see the overlap, the differences? How do they interrelate, those disciplines?
Right. I just put in our private chat a paper. I don't know how to put it into the group chat, but
I'll put it.
if you look at that paper, there's like 6 different. They look at the literature on service and service innovation, and a big component of it is new service design. Probably the biggest component is new service design, but that's kind of almost product oriented in a way. It doesn't embrace service dominant logic. And then there is the service design part separately, which is more embracing that. And I guess the way I think, probably just to add a little bit more about my biography, I was at Apple for 10 years before going over to IBM, and Don Norman, who I'm sure many in your community know, was my boss. He was the head of the Advanced Technology Group. And I remember, we'd be flying to conferences, sitting side by side, so we would have hours and hours to talk, and he was always cranking out books, even when he was the VP at Apple. And I would read his books and comment on them. And his latest book on humanity-centered design, and if you go to his website and you look at some of the videos, he talked about, there was a time when design was like making physical things, and you had like clay and you were building things, and then it shifted, and now it's systems. You're designing these systems, and I would say that's where we, in the service innovation community in ISSIP and IBM, we really took a systems view, and we looked at all of the different industries and all of the different disciplines, like transportation and even manufacturing, right? is very knowledge intensive, and there's automation coming in. So we really look at this from a systems perspective, and I think Don says it much better than I do, that it's not just enough to be human-centered in the design. We have to take a humanity-centered view where we're looking at the interactions of all these systems. And I would say that's probably, in my view of service design and service innovation and how they're related, it's probably that complexity that is really where we're all, struggling to build better models of the world that can handle this complexity, so that we don't run into unintended consequences. And we remember the early days of social media and how it was going to be wonderful and everybody be communicating, and then of course bad actors come in and start using it, and you get a lot of harms that are coming out of things as well. So this is, I would say, both the service design community as well as the service innovation community, all of us are in this boat together. And I think Don wrote it really well in his latest book about humanity-centered design. That's one thought I have.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And whenever I see Don, he says the future of design is service design. And I'm very grateful for him embracing service design in such an explicit way, because I do believe the future of design is service design. Even when you work with graphics, you should regard it as a service design problem. You are not just creating a logo. You are creating an intervention into a system, and you should know what that intervention is aiming at and what impact it will have on different stakeholders within the system. So yes, and I think Don Norman has really pushed the, I call it life-centered design. I think design is aware that they have created a lot of harm and a lot of exploitation and a lot of injustice in this world through human-centeredness. I think we are learning that we have to bring other stakeholders to the table, and that we have to make sure that we create a huge clarity which systems we are impacting by the work we are doing, and those go far beyond human systems. They are, well, planetary systems.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
yeah,
then we're all living together in this big ball of dirt, right? So we
Yes.
cannot move away from here, and in everything's connected. So it's a little bit egoistical in a way, considering that it's just humans, even though we're just a small parcel of the whole world.
That's right. That's right. And it's multi-scale. I think that's one of the things. And I see Steve Kwan, one of our ISSIP fellows, he posted about SSMED. And we talk about service science management, engineering, and design. And actually, because of Ray Fisk, we added art. So service science management, engineering, design, and art. And then through a bunch of people, they said, no, you have to add public policy as well. And so the acronym kept growing and growing as we really tried to be true to this idea that there is this, if you want to call it a socio-technical system design loop. And there's a great book by Klein from Stanford on the conceptual foundations of multidisciplinary thinking, which really talks about the socio-technical system design loop is going faster and faster and faster. And as it goes faster, this design loop, we have to start understanding the relationships between the disciplines and between the professions better, because it's these teams working together that create this. And I think a lot of the multi-scale complexity of the world is really where we're struggling, with this need for service education, right? Service systems have to become like the bread and butter of our education system, at a very, very early level, in my mind, in order for us to have a chance at dealing with this.
I would like to, before we come to the end of the of our conversation, I would like to know who earns a Service Innovation Award, because in service design we are giving an award every year, and it's usually about very practical applications of service design with huge impact. For example, last year it was a Singapore authority for work permits that got the Service Design Award for changing their processes in a way that it was so much easier to get that permit. And I would be curious, what kind of projects do you bestow with the Service Innovation Award?
Yeah, so definitely go out to our ISSIP website, ISSIP.org, and look under leadership, and you'll see, we have, Michelle Carroll, our executive director, and we have our various people like Haroon from who does our awards program, and Christine Young from IBM, who does our ambassador program. So you can see all the different people, our strategy council. But our awards program, the deadline is December 31st every year. And any participant, any of the 2,000 participants in the ISSIP community of practice can say, hey, we did a service innovation that we think was excellent. And it's a very short form. It takes less than an hour for people to fill out. And this last year, we had an overall winner, Frank Mellis from Smart Bio from Europe. We had Curious Learning, which was a spinoff from MIT for societal impact. So we have overall winner, we have societal impact, we have business impact, which was a Cisco award this year, and we had impact to innovation, which was EarthGrid, which is a new tunneling mechanism for building energy systems more efficiently.
So that's really broad.
Yeah, very, very broad. And it bubbles up from the community. So anybody in the community can say, here's an innovation that my organization came up with, and the award goes to the organization that did it. We've had winners in the past be like museums that had created a new exhibit. So very, very broad, Birgit.
Yeah, I think it's amazing because it's always super broad in terms of service and how different areas and different ideas you can come up, and these awards always bring, I think, the best of what we have. And now also I want to open for any questions from the audience. So if you have any questions for Jim or for Birgit, drop them in the comments and we're going to answer them live. And also, while we're waiting for some questions, as Birgit was saying, we have the Service Design Award. Here, there's a QR code because we already have openings for the Service Design Award 2025. So if you have one great idea or a couple of different ideas that you'd like to submit, just go here and have a look.
Yeah, in my view, the QR code is hidden by the little orange live tag.
Yeah,
And
but I think for them it should be fine. So yeah,
great.
because they
Different
don't see
view.
yeah, it's like a slightly different view. So let's wait a little bit. But yeah, while we're waiting for some questions,
I can just say I want to comment on Monse's comment. I'm also very happy to see these communities coming together. As I said, there was communication between us, but I think we can learn much more from each other and we can join forces in a way to be more impactful. I'm also having conversations now with Ray Fisk from the ServSIC community, which is the special interest group for service marketing underneath the roof of the American Marketing Association. And we might be having him as a guest at some point here as well. And I think Jim and Ray are good friends, and I think we can build the ground for more conversations and more collaboration between marketing, innovation, and design.
Yeah, I think building those bridges is really important at this time, especially. And I am on the board of ServCoLab, Ray Fisk's nonprofit as well. And I should mention UIDP as well for university industry. We really try to get that balance in ISSIP. It's not just academics, it's not just energy industry. We really try to get that balance, including with government, because we think it's such a broad area that we have to have better communication between all the parts. And it is an exciting time for, I really look at things happening in the world and I say the need for service innovation and service design has never been greater. So it's great that our two communities are, collaborating even more.
Yeah.
And thank you for this opportunity.
Great. And you know that the Service Design Global Conference will be coming to the United States this year in October to Dallas, Texas. And I think that is a great opportunity to have more conversations with the innovation and the service innovation and the service marketing community. And I think, yes, Felipe, you're great. He's put up another QR code that leads to the
for the
to the
Service Conference.
early bird tickets for the SDGC 25, which ends on May 31st, just as a little commercial by the side.
Yes.
Yes.
So, here. But I think we also have a question here from Catherine. It's not showing on Restream, but I'll put the question up either way. Systems inherently want to keep moving forward with the status quo. What are some of the most impactful service design methods you have used to start turning big ships?
Well, I mean, I'll take this first. For me, it was extremely impressive how prototyping and testing makes a huge difference. As designers, as service designers, we are able to create futures that do not yet exist, and through those scenarios also create a desire for those futures. I think when you work with service systems, you're always dealing with organizational change, and organizational change always encounters resistance. But if you do it in a co-creative process that helps to visualize futures, to test them, to experience them, you have a lot of opportunities to get over those resistance and take people into that hunger for change.
Yeah. I think it's a great question as well. And I think, I would just urge everyone to think about it at three levels. You can think about it as an individual. How do you make a big change, and because we get in our routines, and how do we change as individuals is an important thing to consider. At the organizational level, big companies, IBM was a big ship, and moving it was a challenge. But what we did is we had this methodology of acquiring big companies. So when you acquired a big company and then you scaled that company from 100 million revenue a year to $1 billion, you could start moving the ship that way. And then you can think about countries as well. And I will also note that one of the biggest ways, and this has good and bad, right? I mean, every company today, what's the top priority thing probably in the company? Artificial intelligence, right? The transformation. So sometimes, external factors cause you to change rapidly, and other times you have these systematic methodologies like IBM, to move the ship. We had to be constantly looking for value pools that we could bring in out of the general market, and know that on the IBM platform, we were going to be able to scale them much more rapidly than they could scale organically outside. So there was a whole methodology around that. And actually, to be honest, we were using AI way back then to help us calculate which would be the best ones to go after. But I think that's a great question: is how do you think about change? And big change is really a great question.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the theory U by Otto Scharmer? I find that really quite impressive, because he says that we do not want to see the future. We want to pretend that the future is just the prolongation of the past. And the theory U claims that you really have to allow yourself to be empathetic with the things that you do not know, and that you have to stop believing that technologies will save us and that some miracle will save us. No, we have to face a future that is not so funny. And if you start really understanding what that future could potentially be, then you can build the energy to develop scenarios of that not yet existing future. So if you are interested in this system change and turning big ships, I could also recommend Otto Scharmer with the theory U.
Very good.
Amazing.
I'll look into that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think with that very great final reflection, we're coming to the end of our time together. So I thank you very much, Jim and Birgit, for the time to share your experiences. As Catherine said in the comment, it's always amazing to hear like big communities creating that bridge, as you were saying.
Thank you, Philip. As always, wonderful. Thanks a lot. Thanks for everybody for being here.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
And for everybody that joined us online, that asked questions or just have been here listening to us, thank you so much for joining us. We have these episodes every Thursday, so feel free, if you are from the ISSIP community, to join us and engage live in the next Thursdays. We always bring different guests to keep the conversation going. So thank you very much, and hope to see you next Thursday. And if you want to keep in touch and check any of the information, here's the link tree for all our social medias for the Service Design Network. Thank you very much, and see you next Thursday. Bye.